Dr. Elias Ward had listened to many strange signals during his life, but nothing prepared him for the sound that arrived on a cold Tuesday night. It came from deep space, far beyond anything humanity had ever touched, and it carried a tone that didn't feel natural at all. It sounded almost alive, like something calling out in fear. The signal repeated again and again, steady and desperate, echoing through the giant satellite dish on the roof of the International Deep Space Station. Elias stood alone in the dark control room, staring at the monitor as a wave of cold air brushed against the back of his neck. It wasn't the temperature that chilled him. It was the feeling behind the sound. Something out there was begging for help. Elias leaned closer to the speakers. The signal stretched out like a cry, long, trembling, and broken in weird patterns. He tapped the side of his headset and listened again. This time he heard something new, a second sound hidden under the first one, small, weak, almost like a whisper. He closed his eyes and forced himself to breathe. "This isn't normal," he muttered. "This isn't random noise." His heart pushed faster inside his chest. For years, he had searched for proof that humanity was not alone. He wanted to find a friendly signal, a call from another world that said, "We exist too." But now that he heard something real, he suddenly wished he hadn't. The whispering sound came again, clearer, sharper, not a voice he could understand, but the fear behind it felt unmistakable. It sounded like someone or something trying desperately to speak before it was too late. Elias ran a hand through his messy hair and took a step back. Okay, stay calm, he told himself, but calm was impossible now. He pressed the intercom. "Sarah, Mark, anyone awake?" His voice shook. "You need to come to the main lab, immediately." For a few seconds, the only answer was the endless cry from space. Then footsteps echoed down the hallway. Two scientists hurried into the room, Sarah Miles, the communications specialist, and Mark Chen, the systems engineer. Both looked tired, confused, and annoyed. None of them liked being called in the middle of the night. But all frustration vanished the moment they heard the signal. Sarah's eyes widened. "Elias, what is that?" "I don't know," he replied, "but it's not random, it's a message." Mark bent over the main console. "Where is it coming from?" Elias pointed at the star map glowing on the large screen. A single red dot pulsed far outside the Milky Way, not even close to the edges beyond them, a place where no human probe had ever gone and no telescope had ever captured a clear image. Mark swallowed hard. "That's too far. No one should be able to send a signal from there." Sarah whispered, "Unless they are far more advanced than us." Elias nodded slowly, "or far more desperate." The room fell silent. Only the cry from the speakers filled the air. Sarah sat down at her station and began decoding the message. Her fingers danced across the keyboard with speed and fear mixed together. "There's something hidden inside," she said, "a second layer, almost like a code." Elias leaned over her shoulder. "Can you decode it?" "I'm trying," she whispered. Minutes passed. The hum of machines filled the room. Outside, the sky remained black and empty, as if the world was holding its breath. Then Sarah gasped. The screen flashed with new symbols, strange shapes, lines, and curves connecting into a pattern that made no sense at first. But the longer they stared, the more familiar some shapes looked. "It's a star map," Elias said softly. Mark squinted. "That can't be right." "That place is destroyed," Elias whispered. He zoomed in on one of the symbols. It showed a planet broken into pieces, black smoke rising in spirals. It was drawn like a warning sign. Sarah touched her mouth. "Oh God, is this what happened to them?" Elias shook his head. "No, this is what they're telling us will happen to us." Sarah froze. "What? They didn't send us a greeting," Elias said. "They sent us a warning." The signal suddenly grew louder, sharper. The cry stretched into a painful screech, so loud that all three scientists covered their ears. The lights flickered, the consoles buzzed, then the second sound, the whisper, appeared again, but this time it wasn't a whisper, it was a countdown, 3 tones, then a pause, 3 tones again, repeating steadily like a ticking clock. Mark stared at the sound waves. "Elias, this is bad, this is really bad." Elias forced himself to breathe. "We need to tell command," Sarah stood. "We need to tell the whole world." "Not yet," Elias said firmly. "If we announce something like this without understanding it, people will panic, governments will panic." Sarah clenched her fists. "Elias, we have a signal from another civilization begging for help, maybe dying, and a countdown we don't understand. This is not the time for secrets." The room was filled with tension, thick like a heavy blanket. The countdown rhythm kept beating, steady and cold, echoing through the walls like a heartbeat from another world. Elias walked slowly to the glass wall and stared out at the dark sky. He always imagined first contact would be beautiful, bright lights, friendly messages, a moment that changed human history for the better, but this was a nightmare. "It feels like they're scared," Elias whispered. "It feels like something was chasing them, something they couldn't escape." Sarah looked at the broken world on the screen. "Do you think the thing that destroyed their planet is coming for us?" Elias didn't answer. He didn't need to, because suddenly the countdown sped up. Beep, 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 beep. The pitch rose higher until it felt like needles in their ears. Mark slammed his hands on the console. Stop the audio." Elias grabbed a pair of noise-canceling headphones and threw them to Sarah. Mute the speakers, the sound shut off. But the silence that followed felt even worse. Sarah rubbed her temples. The countdown changed. Why now? What triggered it? Elias turned back to the monitor. His face was pale. It reacted to us. Mark frowned. You mean it knows we're listening? Yes, Elias whispered. It knows. The room suddenly felt much smaller, much darker. The quiet hum of machines sounded like whispers in the dark. Sarah pressed a few keys. I think the message is expecting a response. Elias nodded slowly. Then we have no choice. He inhaled deeply. Prepare a transmission. Mark looked uncertain. What do we even say? Hello, we are here, we heard you. Elias walked to the microphone. His hand shook as he touched it. If someone is dying out there, we can't stay silent. Sarah hesitated. Elias, what if replying is the wrong move? What if the countdown is something dangerous? Elias looked into her eyes. Not replying might be worse. He pressed the button. This is Earth. We hear your signal. If you understand us, please respond. For a moment, nothing happened. Seconds stretched into long minutes. The silence grew thicker and heavier. The team stared at the screen, waiting for anything, a tone, a flicker, a change in the message, but there was nothing. Sarah let out a shaky breath. Maybe they can't hear us, or maybe they're gone, Mark whispered. Elias refused to accept it. No, that signal is too strong. Someone sent it, someone meant for us to hear it. He replayed the star map and stared at the broken planet. They saw their world fall. They tried to warn others before it reached us. Sarah pointed at the countdown waves. But what reaches us? What are we waiting for? Before Elias could answer, every screen in the room turned black. A single line of text appeared. We waited for your reply. Sarah's voice cracked. Elias, what does that mean? Another line appeared under it. And the quiet meant it was already too late. The room fell silent. No one moved. No one breathed. The speakers turned back on by themselves, and the countdown started again, faster than before. The countdown echoed through the silent room, speeding faster and faster like a pulse racing toward disaster. Dr. Elias Ward stood frozen in front of the dark screens, unable to look away from the message glowing in cold white letters. We waited for your reply. In the quiet meant it was already too late. Sarah felt her knees weakening. She grabbed the corner of the desk, her fingers shaking. Elias, this message, it means something already happened, something bad. Mark wiped sweat from his forehead. Too late for what? For saving them, for saving us, for everything. Elias did not answer. His mind moved through 100 thoughts at once, each more terrifying than the last. He replayed the desperate cry, the broken whisper. The star map of a shattered world. He replayed the countdown that began only after they responded. He whispered, the message reacted the moment we spoke. Sarah looked at him sharply. You think we triggered something? Elias slowly nodded. Yes, the signal wasn't just a warning, it was a system waiting for a response. Mark stepped forward. Then we need to analyze. He stopped. Every light in the lab flickered again. The machines buzzed like something was crawling through the wires. Then the countdown stopped. Everything froze, even the air. Sarah held her breath. Is it over? No, Elias said quietly. Something changed. All three stared at the screen. New symbols appeared, a new part of the alien message, patterns they had not seen before, a sequence of numbers and arrows pointing at Earth. Mark leaned closer. This looks like coordinates, measurements, it's scanning us. Elias clenched his jaw. It's studying Earth. Sarah felt chills rise through her body. Why now? Elias stared at the data without blinking. Because we replied, he whispered, and the message was waiting for that. The map of destruction. Sarah pulled up the alien star map again. This time with the new symbols added, something horrible became clear. The map was not simply showing their destroyed world, it was showing a path, a long path, a straight path, a path passing through dozens of star systems. Each one marked with the same symbol, extinguished. Sarah pointed at the path with trembling fingers. Elias, every world along this line is shown as destroyed, one after another, all in the same direction. Elias swallowed, like something moving through the galaxy and wiping out anything it touches. Mark checked the distances. Whatever did this moved incredibly fast, faster than anything we've ever imagined. Elias stared at the screen. The path ended at one final point, a point that made all three scientists step back in fear. Ended on Earth. Sarah almost whispered the word. We're next. Elias felt a sting in his chest. He had dreamed of meeting life beyond Earth, but he never imagined meeting the thing that devoured entire worlds. We need to alert command, he said. Now, Mark nodded and opened the secure link to the global network, but the moment he typed the first code, the screen turned black again. A red symbol replaced it. A single eye, cold, unblinking, watching. Sarah stepped back. Is that part of the message? Elias stared at it with disbelief. No, this is something new, something the message activated remotely. Mark tried to shut down the system. The computers aren't responding. The red eye blinked once, twice, then words appeared below it. Do not call for help. Sarah gasped. It's reading our systems. Mark shook his head. This is impossible. How can a signal do this? Elias whispered, it's not just a signal, it's a program. A warning wrapped inside a weapon. Sarah shivered. A weapon? Elias nodded. A very old one and incredibly advanced. The red eye stared at them, silent, judging, then the computers rebooted on their own, the eye vanished, the message disappeared, but the fear in the room grew even heavier. The silent visitor, before anyone could speak, the building's alarm system rang out. A harsh metallic warning filled the corridors. Unidentified object detected approaching Earth. Approach velocity beyond known limits. Sarah's pulse jumped. It can't be them, it's too soon. Elias looked at the ceiling as if expecting the sky to fall. No, it's not them, it's something else. Mark brought up the latest satellite feed. A tiny dot glowed in the upper atmosphere, too small to be a ship, too fast to be debris. It came out of nowhere, Mark said. No trace, no entrance path, it just appeared. Sarah stared at the moving dot. How does something appear without traveling? Elias whispered the only answer that made sense. It teleported. One word filled the room with dread. Teleportation meant unimaginable technology, technology that made humanity feel like insects. The dot grew larger as it fell through the atmosphere. It was heading toward land fast. Mark zoomed in. The shape became clearer. He froze. Elias finished the sentence. A probe, a metallic sphere with glowing blue lines. Moving with perfect balance, it looked alive but made of pure metal, designed for one purpose: observation. Sarah whispered, "It's watching us." Elias nodded, "No, it's evaluating us." The probe hovered above the ground near the facility. Cameras and sensors pointed in all directions. It scanned the ground, the air, the buildings. Then it turned toward the window, directly at them. Mark froze. "It sees us." Sarah stepped behind a desk. "What does it want?" Elias walked toward the window slowly, almost hypnotized. The probe glowed softly with a rhythm, bright, dim, bright again, a heartbeat, but not a human one. Elias whispered, "It came to confirm something." The probe suddenly flashed, bright enough to light the entire room for a moment, then it shot upward into the sky and disappeared. Sarah gasped. "It's gone just like that." Mark checked the system. No radar signature, no trail, no gravity disturbance. "It just left." Elias stared out the window. "It came to check if humanity responded to the message." Sarah's eyes widened. "And we did." Elias nodded. "Yes," she whispered. "So what does that mean?" Elias did not answer because he didn't know. The data that should not exist. They returned to the main console. The countdown was still silent, but the computer had saved something new, a hidden file, one they did not create. Sarah opened it carefully. Inside the file was a video, a recording. Elias felt cold. "This wasn't here before." Mark hit play. The video showed an alien city, tall towers, crystal-like structures, bridges of light, beautiful, peaceful. Then everything changed. Dark shapes appeared in the sky, massive, sharp, silent. They hovered above the city like shadows of death. Sarah whispered, "Those aren't ships, those are machines." Then a beam of dark energy fell from the sky, not bright like a laser. Dark like a wound, a hole that swallowed everything it touched. The towers collapsed, the ground cracked, the sky turned to fire. The people, whatever they looked like, ran in panic. Their shapes blurred, their bodies dissolving in the air. The camera shook violently. Elias's heart twisted as he watched an entire civilization cry out for help. The last frame froze on a single alien face, its eyes wide, terrified, reflecting the burning sky. Then the video ended with one line, "We sent the warning, you must not fail the test." Sarah covered her mouth. "Test? What test?" Mark sat heavily. "Is surviving the test the only way to stop whatever destroyed them?" Elias stared at the line. "Yes, a test of judgment, a test of unity, a test of us." Sarah whispered, "Why us? Why Earth?" Elias turned off the screen, and in the dark reflection of the glass he saw his own frightened eyes. "Because whatever destroyed them," Elias said softly, "is moving toward us," and the message was not just a warning. He looked at his team. It was a way to see if humanity was ready. Mark frowned. "Ready for what?" Elias whispered the answer none of them wanted to hear: ready to face whatever comes next. The quiet before the storm. The intercom crackled. A voice echoed through the building. "Dr. Ward, report to Central Command immediately. Global Council requests your presence." Mark whispered. "They know something's wrong." Elias nodded. "And we are the only ones who have seen everything." Sarah looked at the dark window again. "Do you think more probes are coming?" Elias looked up at the sky. "Not probes," he said, "something larger." Sarah's breath caught. "You think it's already here?" Elias nodded slowly. "It's close, closer than we think." The countdown restarted in the background, slow, steady, cold, a clock without mercy. And humanity had no idea how much time was left. While the rest of humanity slept peacefully, unaware of the danger drifting toward them, Dr. Elias Ward and his team drove across the silent desert highway toward Central Command. The sky was still dark, the stars fading behind thin clouds that stretched like long scars. Inside the vehicle, no one spoke. The radio stayed off. Even the engine felt quieter, as if it too sensed the tension in the air. Sarah stared out the window. "Do you feel it?" Mark looked at her. "Feel what?" "The air," she whispered. "It feels heavy, like something is pressing on the world." Elias said nothing, but he felt it too, a strange pressure in the atmosphere, as if someone or something was watching Earth from above. Not a planet, not a star, not a natural thing, a presence, something far beyond human understanding. He placed a hand on the dashboard and closed his eyes. He tried to calm his racing mind, but all he could hear was the message. "We waited for your reply," and the quiet meant it was already too late. Too late for what? Too late to stop what was coming. He didn't want to believe it, but every piece of evidence pointed to one truth: the danger was already here. Arrival at Central Command. Central Command looked like a giant bunker carved into the earth. Steel walls, armed guards. Radar dishes pointing toward the heavens like spears waiting for an unseen enemy. As Elias stepped out of the vehicle, he noticed something unusual. Every guard was on edge, every soldier stood ready, every person watched the sky. Sarah whispered, "They know." Mark nodded. Something spooked them. Inside the building, the air hummed with panic disguised as busy movement. Screens flashed with maps, satellite views, and emergency codes. Officers whispered urgently into headsets. Technicians typed at impossible speed. A soldier led Elias's team into the main briefing chamber. The Global Council leaders from several countries stood around a large holographic table with grim expressions. None of them looked rested. Some still wore the suits they had arrived in earlier. One of the council members, General David Ashford, turned toward Elias. His eyes were tired but sharp. "Dr. Ward, we need answers." Elias nodded. "I will tell you everything we found." A tall woman leaned forward. Before that, look. She tapped a button on the table. The hologram changed into a view of Earth from space. Sarah's breath caught. "What is that?" A dark shape hovered behind the moon, huge, silent, perfectly still. Mark's mouth fell open. "That's a ship, but it's massive." Elias studied the shape carefully. No lights, no engines, no heat signatures. It looked like a giant shadow drifting in space. Larger than any human-made station, larger than any known alien craft. Sarah whispered, "So it's not the probe from last night." General Ashford shook his head. "No, this arrived today." Elias's voice lowered. "Then this is the next stage." Ashford looked confused. "Next stage of what?" Elias pointed at the hologram. "The test." The silent giant. The room fell silent as Elias explained everything: the message, the countdown, the destroyed worlds, the star map, and the probe that scanned them. He showed them the alien recording: cities falling, skies burning, the dark machines above the dying world. The council members watched in silence. Some covered their mouths, others clenched their fists. A few looked away, unable to keep watching. When the recording ended, no one spoke for a long time. Finally, General Ashford took a deep breath. "You're telling us that this ship," he pointed to the dark shape behind the moon, "is the same thing that destroyed those worlds?" Elias shook his head. "No, the message does not show ships attacking, it shows something worse." "Worse?" Ashford echoed. "Yes." Elias looked around the room. "The message shows a force, a phenomenon, something that doesn't behave like a machine or a creature, something that behaves like a rule of nature but controlled by someone." The tall woman frowned. "Like what?" Elias lowered his voice. "Like a shadow that eats light, a darkness that spreads and erases everything." A chill spread through the room. Mark added, "The message shows countdowns. Maybe the countdown is the time a world has before the darkness reaches it." Sarah nodded slowly, and every world that tried to call for help failed. General Ashford clenched his jaw. "Then the ship behind the moon is not the weapon," Elias finished. "It's the judge." Sarah whispered. "It came to observe humanity's reaction." Elias nodded. "Reaction to danger, reaction to fear, reaction to each other." "And then?" Ashford asked. Elias looked him straight in the eyes. "It decides if humanity should survive or be erased." Something wakes on the dark side. Before the council could respond, alarms started blaring in the building. A technician shouted, "We're detecting energy spikes from the moon." The hologram zoomed in automatically. A faint blue glow spread across the massive shadow. Sarah stepped closer. "What's happening?" Mark stared at the readings. "It's charging something, but we don't know what." Elias felt his stomach twist. "This is part of the test. Humanity has to pass before the countdown ends." General Ashford slammed his fist on the table. "Then we must attack now." Elias shook his head. "No, if we attack, we fail instantly." The council stared at him. He continued. "The destroyed worlds in the message, they fought, they panicked, they turned against each other." Sarah added, "That means their test was to see if they could remain united during fear." Mark nodded. "Seeing a giant unknown object appears behind your moon is enough to drive any world into chaos." Ashford paced. "So what do we do?" "Wait, watch it." Elias whispered, "We need to understand the test. The wrong move will be the last move." Suddenly the lights flickered. The building shook. Everyone grabbed the table for support. A junior officer shouted, "Sir, we're detecting something else." The hologram shifted. This time something much smaller appeared, dropping from the dark ship. A series of small metallic spheres, hundreds of them, fell toward Earth like silent rain. Sarah stared. "Probes." Elias felt cold. "No, these are eyes." Mark swallowed. "Eyes, yes," Elias said. "They will observe humanity directly." Rain of machines. The small metallic orbs entered Earth's atmosphere without heat, without sound, without falling like normal objects. They floated downward gently, almost gracefully, scattering like glowing seeds in the air. Live cameras around the globe showed them descending across cities, forests, oceans, mountains. Children pointed at them, parents panicked. Soldiers raised weapons, governments went on alert. One landed outside Central Command, only meters from the entrance. It hovered, rotating slowly, a faint blue circle pulsing around it. Elias stepped toward the window. We cannot attack these. General Ashford shook his head. How can we stop billions of people from panicking? Elias whispered, we can't, but maybe we don't have to. Sarah turned to him. What do you mean? Elias stared at the nearest probe. Every world in the message failed because fear tore them apart. If humanity stays united, even scared, they pass the test. Mark added, the probes will show whoever sent the message that we can work together or not. A loud crack interrupted them. A soldier down the hall had shot one of the probes. The orb blinked red. Sarah gasped. No, the probe pulsed. A shockwave burst outward, not destructive but disabling. The soldier collapsed unconscious. Lights in the hallway flickered. Electronics died instantly, but nothing exploded. No one was hurt. The probe didn't retaliate. It simply returned to its blue glow, Mark whispered. It's evaluating reactions. It responded non-violently because the threat was small. Elias nodded. Yes, General Ashford rubbed his forehead. So this whole thing, these probes, the giant ship, all of it, is one huge exam for humanity. Elias nodded, a pass or fail exam, and the countdown tells us how much time we have left. Sarah looked around the room, her voice shaking, and we don't know how to pass. Elias's reply was quiet, heavy. No, but we know one thing. They all stared at him. Elias whispered, if humanity fights itself, we lose. The message that stopped the world, all screens in the command center suddenly turned black. Everyone froze. A single line appeared, not alien, not human, but terrifying. The test has begun. The countdown flashed back onto the main screen, this time much faster. Sarah whispered, Elias, how long do we have? He stared at the ticking numbers, hours, not days, not weeks, just hours. Elias exhaled slowly, his voice almost a whisper, not enough unless humanity changes right now. The dark ship behind the moon grew brighter. Sarah whispered, what happens when the countdown ends? Elias closed his eyes, the same thing that happened to every world before us. The whole planet felt different when the countdown returned. News channels broke into emergency broadcasts. People rushed into streets staring at the sky. Governments locked down borders. Planes were grounded. Schools closed without warning. But even with all this chaos, nobody understood what was happening. Only Elias Ward and a few people inside Central Command knew the truth, that the dark shape behind the moon wasn't a ship of attack, it was a ship of judgment. And the probes floating across Earth were not weapons, they were watchers. Recording, measuring, evaluating. Humanity had been placed under an exam no one asked to take. A test that every other civilization before them had failed. The planet in panic, the world was waking into fear. In New York, people pointed at the glowing probes drifting between skyscrapers. In London, cars stopped in the middle of bridges as crowds stared upward. In India, crowds filled markets, praying to gods old and new. In Africa, children reached up toward the orbs, not afraid, curious. But in some places, fear turned violent. Gunshots echoed in a few cities. Some people threw stones, others tried to capture the probes. A few military units fired missiles without waiting for orders. All across Earth, humanity's reactions were being recorded. Sarah watched the global feed inside the command center, her eyes full of sadness. People are scared, they're panicking. Mark shook his head. We can't blame them, they don't know what we know. Elias stood still. Arms crossed tightly, his jaw clenched. He watched each video, the fear, the bravery, the panic, the confusion. He whispered, this is exactly what the test is designed for. General Ashford turned toward him. What do you mean? Elias looked at the screen, his voice heavy. The test is simple. Can humanity stay united during fear? And if we fail? Ashford asked. Elias didn't need to answer. Everyone in the room already knew. A signal from space suddenly. The satellite technician shouted, Sir, we're picking up a transmission coming directly from the object behind the moon. Sarah's eyes widened. They're communicating? No, Elias said, stepping forward. Not communicating, broadcasting. The screen flickered, then a voice, mechanical, cold, fragmented, filled the room. Observer protocol activated. Species behavior unstable. Initial result incomplete. Countdown continuing. The room went still. General Ashford slammed his fist on the console. They're calling us unstable. We're doing everything we can to prevent panic. Elias shook his head. They aren't judging your soldiers or your governments. They're judging humanity itself. Across the planet, the same message played through satellites, televisions, phones, even radios that weren't turned on. The test continues. Final decision pending. Countdown active. Sarah swallowed hard. They're showing themselves to everyone now, Elias nodded. Yes, because the test is global. Every human action counts. A rebel broadcast just when the team tried to understand the message, a new problem erupted. A rogue broadcast cut into every major TV channel and internet platform. A man wearing a mask appeared on screens worldwide. This is a message to every human. The alien watchers are a threat. They are preparing to wipe us out. The governments know and they're lying to you. Humanity must fight back before it's too late. He held a gun in one hand, in the other a captured orb sparking violently. Sarah gasped. No, this is bad. This is really bad. Mark punched the table. This idiot is going to get us all killed. The masked man continued. Rise up, destroy the probes, show them we are not weak, show them humanity will never kneel. Millions of viewers were watching, terrified, angry, confused, and for the watchers above Earth, the reaction was being recorded. Elias felt his heart twist. This is exactly what they want to see, how we behave under pressure. The broadcast ended only after the man raised his gun and fired at the probe. The screen went black. Sarah whispered, "They think we want war." "No," Elias said, "they think we want chaos." A rising storm, crowds erupted in some places. People smashed probes with sticks and bats. Soldiers in panicked countries fired wildly into the sky. Governments fought to maintain order. In other places, people formed human chains to protect the orbs. Scientists tried to study the probes peacefully. Children touched them with wonder. Opposite reactions, opposite energies, two versions of humanity. Elias watched the global map flicker with red zones of violence and blue zones of peace. He whispered, "The test is not about winning a battle, it's about who we become when we are afraid." Sarah stepped closer. "Then we're failing, aren't we?" Elias didn't answer. His silence was the answer. The unbelievable discovery, Mark suddenly shouted from his console. "Elias, you need to see this." Everyone rushed to his screen. Mark played a video recorded by a drone near a forest in Norway. A probe was hovering over a group of children, but something strange was poking out of its surface. A crack, tiny, glowing, almost like light leaking through metal. Sarah frowned. "Why is it cracked?" Mark zoomed in. "Because," he whispered, "this probe is not a machine." The crack widened, revealing something shocking inside. Not gears, not wires, something alive. A small flicker of organic material like a glowing heart beating slowly. Sarah gasped. "It's alive." "No." Elias corrected softly. "Not alive, but not dead either. Something in between." General Ashford's eyes narrowed. "What are you implying?" Elias stared at the probe on the screen. "These watchers, they are not just machines sent by a civilization." He paused. "They are the civilization." Sarah whispered, "You mean their species became these?" Elias nodded. "When their worlds were destroyed, they must have transferred themselves into these forms, living data, living watchers," Mark added. "And now they judge other worlds to prevent the same fate." Elias slowly nodded. "They judge, they decide, they warn, they are survivors who became guardians." Sarah swallowed. "Guardians or executioners?" Elias didn't answer. The dark ship awakened suddenly. The hologram of the moon flashed red. A low rumble vibrated through the building, even though the moon was hundreds of thousands of kilometers away. Technicians yelled warnings. Energy surge detected. "The object is expanding. Radiation levels rising." Sarah grabbed Elias's arm. "What does that mean?" Elias watched as the shadow behind the moon began to unfold like a giant flower opening its petals, except the petals were made of darkness, not metal, not matter, not energy in any familiar form. It was expanding like a black curtain stretching across space. Mark stuttered, Is it preparing to destroy us?" Elias whispered, "No, not yet." "Then what is it doing?" Sarah asked. He stared as the darkness spread. "It's preparing the final evaluation. The world must choose." General Ashford turned to Elias. "What do we do? How do we make humanity pass this test?" Elias closed his eyes. "The probes don't want war, they don't want fear, they don't want chaos." He opened his eyes. "They want to see if we can choose unity over destruction." Mark nodded slowly. "A world working together or a world tearing itself apart?" Sarah whispered, "Then we need to send a message to the whole planet." General Ashford nodded. "Yes, a global broadcast." Elias breathed deeply, hope and fear mixed in his chest, but before he could speak, every probe on Earth suddenly turned toward the sky, hundreds of millions of them, glowing blue, pulsing in unison. The countdown on the command screen began flashing red. Sarah whispered, trembling, "Elias, the final stage just started." The moment every probe on Earth lifted its glowing blue eye toward the sky, humanity felt something shift. People all over the world paused, on streets, in homes, in buses, in fields, feeling the weight of the moment. It was as if Earth itself was holding its breath. Inside Central Command, Elias Ward watched the probes in silent horror. "They're sinking," he whispered. Sarah stepped forward, her voice trembling. "Sinking for what?" Elias didn't answer. He couldn't, not yet. Mark checked the sensors. Energy levels rising across all probes. They're connected like a shared mind. The building vibrated lightly. A hum grew in the air, not loud but felt like a deep vibration inside the bones. General Ashford shouted, "Someone tell me what they're preparing to do." Elias stared at the sky map. "They're beginning the final measurement." Ashford frowned. "Measurement of what?" Elias slowly turned toward him. "Of humanity's soul." The world watches the watchers across the globe, cameras pointed upward as the probes formed glowing patterns. In Paris, hundreds of orbs created a spiral above the Eiffel Tower. In Tokyo, they lined up like constellations. In Brazil, they glowed over the Amazon like blue fireflies. In Kenya, they hovered above village huts, reflecting in the eyes of children who stared with calm wonder. But in war-torn areas, something different happened. Probes moved faster, observing clashes, fear, violence. Sarah watched in pain. "They're learning who we are based on our worst moments." Elias shook his head. "No, they're looking at everything, both the beauty and the darkness." Mark added, "But the world is panicking. This test is impossible." Elias stepped closer to the main screen. "No test is impossible, but it requires choice." General Ashford folded his arms. And what choice is that? Elias whispered, unity. Or extinction. The room fell silent. The broadcast that could save humanity. General Ashford slammed his fist on the table. We need to speak to the world, explain the test, calm the panic. Elias nodded. Yes, a global message from all leaders together. Sarah added, with scientists and people of different nations, one voice. Mark turned on the communication system. We can broadcast on every screen on Earth, but we need authorization. Ashford nodded sharply. You have it. Sarah's hands flew across the controls. Cameras activated, lights flickered on, microphones warmed with a soft hum, but then every screen in the building went black. Elias froze. No, a symbol appeared, the single glowing eye. One of the watchers had taken over the broadcast. Sarah's voice trembled. They don't want us to talk to the world. The eye expanded. A voice filled the speakers, cold, metallic, echoing. The test must be uninfluenced. No global manipulation allowed. General Ashford shouted at the screen, we're not manipulating, we're trying to stop panic, you're judging humanity unfairly. The voice responded instantly, interference detected, this action will be recorded. Sarah covered her mouth, they think we're trying to cheat. Elias felt his heart sink. We must stop, anything we do could make us fail. Ashford gritted his teeth, so we just watch, we just let fear tear the world apart. Elias shook his head. No, we act differently, we help locally, not globally, human to human, person to person. He stepped closer to Ashford, we show them something stronger than fear. Hope in small places, the team split into groups, contacting local units, scientists, communities, small circles of influence. They couldn't speak to the world, but they could speak to individuals. And slowly, something surprising began happening across the planet. In Italy, neighbors held hands and watched the probes together. In Canada, firefighters stood between scared crowds and the glowing watchers, telling them not to be afraid. In Egypt, religious leaders prayed with people in calm harmony. In China, families stood on rooftops, talking quietly, watching the sky. In Africa, elders told stories to children about courage and unity. The watchers recorded everything. Mark smiled faintly. It's working, people are calming down. Sarah wiped tears from her eyes. This is who we really are, not the panic, not the violence, this. Elias placed a hand on her shoulder. Yes, and they need to see it. The darkness expands, but hope was fragile, and above the moon the darkness continued to unfold. It stretched wider, forming a circle like an eclipse of nothingness. Technicians at Central Command shouted, the object is activating a gravitational field. We're losing contact with several satellites. Energy readings off the charts. General Ashford looked at Elias. Tell me, is this the destruction beginning? Elias watched closely. No, not yet. This is preparation. They're forming the final lens. Sarah frowned. Final lens. Elias nodded. They need a stable field to evaluate the final behavior of the species. Mark swallowed. So the darkness is the testing screen? Elias nodded. Yes, and when the countdown ends, they project the result. Sarah's voice cracked. And if we fail? Elias didn't answer. Humanity at the edge around the world, tension grew again. A religious leader in South America declared the Watchers as demons. A political faction in Asia threatened to attack the probes. A military leader in Europe ordered fighter jets into the sky. Mark slammed his hands on the console. This is getting worse again. People are breaking. Sarah shook her head. We're so close, people just need time. General Ashford shouted, time is what we don't have. Look at the countdown. The ticking numbers on screen moved faster. Hours were becoming minutes. Minutes were becoming seconds. Elias whispered, we need something that shows humanity's best, something undeniable. Sarah looked at him with hope. Like what? Elias slowly turned toward her. A sacrifice. The unexpected answer before Elias could explain, a new broadcast cut into all global systems. But it wasn't from the Watchers. It was from a small village in Nepal, a video taken by a young girl. She pointed her camera at a probe floating above her family's home. Her village had no weapons, no soldiers, no chaos, just people, children, elders, farmers, monks. They gathered around the probe singing a soft prayer, a harmony of peaceful voices rising into the night air, not in fear, not in panic, but in acceptance, in unity, in calm strength. The probe glowed brighter, a soft, warm light, almost like gratitude. Mark whispered, look at the readings, the global network is showing probe activity shifting. Sarah's voice trembled, they're responding to peace. Elias nodded slowly, this is it, this is the real test. General Ashford stared at the screen, a single village changed the evaluation. Elias whispered, no, not the village, the choice. The final pulse suddenly, every probe on Earth stopped moving. Every blue light froze, the entire world went silent. The countdown reached its final minute. 57. Sarah grabbed Elias's hand. Is this it? Elias nodded, whatever happens next is the final decision. The darkness behind the moon stopped expanding. It curved inward, sharpened, focused, like a giant eye preparing to open. Mark's voice shook. What is it looking for? Elias whispered the truth, which version of humanity we choose to be. The countdown hit 10. Every probe glowed white. 9, the darkness twisted. 8, the world held its breath. 7, Sarah squeezed Elias's hand. 6, Mark whispered a prayer. 5, Ashford stood tall. 4, every child and elder stared at the sky. 3, Elias closed his eyes. 2, silence. 1, the darkness opened. When the countdown reached 0, it felt like the whole planet stopped breathing. The darkness behind the moon shifted, not exploding, not expanding, but unfolding. Like a massive shadow turning inside out. The black field bent, twisted, folded into itself, and then opened like a giant iris. A cosmic eye, a gate, a lens made from darkness itself. Every probe on Earth flashed bright white at the same moment, not blue, not harmless, white like the color of a new star being born. Sarah's breath froze in her throat. What are we looking at? Elias couldn't answer. His mind could barely understand what he was seeing. Mark whispered, that's not a weapon. Elias nodded slowly. No, it's a window. The giant eye in space pointed directly at Earth, millions of data streams forming a beam that did not travel through space like light, but connected instantly like a bridge built from information and consciousness. The Watchers had opened the final stage. Elias whispered, the observation gate, the last step of the test. General Ashford stepped forward. Tell me what this means, Elias. Is this ruin? Is this judgment? Elias shook his head. No, not yet. This is the moment humanity is measured. Sarah looked at him with fear. Measured how? Elias stared at the sky, his voice breaking. By the truth of who we are. The pulse of judgment. The observation gate emitted a pulse. Not sound, not light, not radiation. Something deeper. Something that reached into minds, memories, hearts. People across the world felt a soft pressure in their chest, like a strange heartbeat that wasn't their own. Old memories resurfaced, moments of kindness, moments of cruelty, moments of fear, moments of love, as if humanity's entire history was being read all at once. Sarah grabbed Elias's arm. Are they reading our minds? Elias nodded. They're reading everything, our species' memory, our choices, our conflicts, our compassion. Mark shook his head in awe. Then every human life matters, every action counts. Elias nodded softly, yes, because nothing can be hidden now. He stepped toward the hologram of the gate. This is not a test of governments, not a test of armies, not a test of science. He placed a hand over his heart. This is a test of humanity itself, humanity's mirror across the planet. People reacted in strange ways. Some cried, seeing their past choices reflected. Some held hands with strangers. Some dropped their weapons and hugged their families. Some fell to their knees and apologized for old mistakes. Some tried to hide, but realized hiding was impossible. Jails fell silent, hospitals filled with peaceful whispers. Schools became gatherings of children clutching each other. Everyone felt the same presence, an ancient mind watching them, not with hatred, not with anger, but with deep, heavy sadness. Sarah felt tears fall from her face. They're not here to destroy us, Elias, she whispered. They're here to understand us. Mark nodded slowly, and decide if we deserve to continue. The ancient voice suddenly, all probes turned from white to gold. A new voice echoed across the world, not from machines, but from inside the mind, soft, old, tired, as if speaking hurt. We were once like you. Elias felt his heart stop. The voice continued. We feared the shadows. We fought among ourselves. We broke our world with our own panic. Sarah covered her mouth in shock. The Watchers were not gods, they were survivors. The voice grew heavier. When the great darkness came, we tried to fight it with weapons. We failed. Images flashed into every human mind, a beautiful world filled with crystalline towers, full of light and life falling into blackness, not exploding, erasing, not death unmaking. The voice whispered, in our final hour we chose to abandon our bodies. Come, Watchers, to protect those who came after us. Elias felt tears forming. Sarah whispered, they weren't testing us to destroy us, they were testing us so we don't become like them. The voice spoke again, we sent warnings to many worlds, they chose fear, they chose division, they fell. A silence filled the minds of every person. Then you still have a choice. The fracture of Earth, but Earth is complicated. Even as some humans opened their hearts, others panicked harder. In one nation, riots erupted again. In another, extremists claimed the Watchers were devils. A country launched fighter jets ready to fire missiles at the gate. Mark slammed the table. We're failing again. Sarah covered her face. No, not now. General Ashford barked orders through his headset. Tell every military commander worldwide, do not engage the gate, do not fire on the probes. But a chilling message came back, sir, some forces aren't listening anymore. They've broken away from orders. Elias felt the pit in his stomach collapse. Humans were being pulled apart, love on one side, fear on the other. The Watchers were seeing everything. The voice returned, two paths form, choose one. Elias whispered, this is it, the final moment. Elias steps forward. Elias suddenly understood something. No government could answer, no army could answer, no leader could answer, only an individual, a human, not a symbol, not a hero. A person making a choice. He turned to Ashford. I need to go outside. Ashford blinked. What, why? Elias stepped toward the door, his voice steady. The testers are not looking for perfect, they're looking for willing. Sarah caught his wrist. You're not going out there alone. Elias smiled sadly. I won't be alone. Mark stared at him. What are you planning? Elias took a deep breath. I'm going to speak to them, not with words, but with choice. one human. One choice outside Central Command, hundreds of probes hovered quietly, glowing gold, waiting. Elias walked slowly among them unarmed. Every soldier watched him. Some cried, some saluted, some prayed. Sarah and Mark followed behind him at a distance, afraid but unwilling to leave him. Elias reached the center of the field. He closed his eyes and thought the only words that mattered: we are not perfect, but we are trying. The gold probes brightened. Elias continued, speaking with his heart, we make mistakes, we break, we fall, but we also learn. A warm light spread from the probes like a sunrise. Elias whispered, we choose peace, we choose unity, we choose hope. Sarah cried softly. Mark bowed his head. All around him, humans stepped out of hiding. Families walked into streets. Doctors walked out of hospitals. Teachers gathered students in open fields. Children held out hands to probes, one by one. People across Earth made the same choice, together. The gate responds. The observation gate shifted. Darkness turned to silver. Silver turned to light. A beam fell from the sky, but not destructive. Warm, gentle, like being touched by a memory of the sun. The ancient voice spoke, your choice is made. Elias felt himself lifted slightly from the ground, not physically, spiritually. Humanity does not fail. Sarah gasped. Mark smiled for the first time in days. General Ashford bowed his head. Then the voice spoke the final, unforgettable message. We will return to teach you how to survive the great darkness when it comes. The probes dimmed, the gate folded shut, the sky cleared. Humanity was safe for now. But the message was clear: a greater threat was coming, and Earth had passed the test to earn the right to prepare. The day the observation gate closed, the world did not celebrate. No fireworks, no cheering crowds, no victory speeches on shining stages. Instead, there was silence. A heavy, beautiful silence across Earth, a silence that felt alive, as if the planet itself was breathing again after holding its breath for centuries. Elias Ward stood alone on the roof of Central Command, watching the sun rise over the horizon. The sky glowed in shades of soft pink and gold, like the world had been washed clean. Sarah stepped beside him. You didn't sleep. Elias shook his head. Couldn't. Too much to think about. Mark joined them, hands in pockets, eyes fixed on the brightening sky. Feels unreal, doesn't it? Elias exhaled deeply. No, it feels necessary. Earth's first morning after judgment. For the first time in recorded history, every nation paused its conflicts. Every soldier stood down. Every politician listened instead of arguing. Every scientist focused not on competing, but on sharing. Humanity had survived a test that no other world had passed. Yet even with that relief, a question hung over everyone. What comes next? General Ashford walked onto the roof, his posture more relaxed than usual. Dr. Ward, the council wants a full report. They want to understand what the Watchers meant by great darkness. Elias nodded. I'll speak to them, but first we need to understand it ourselves. Sarah crossed her arms. We know the Watchers lost to it. Their world fell because they couldn't unite. Humanity got lucky. No, Elias said firmly. Humanity made a choice. Mark nodded. We earned the right to survive, but also the responsibility to prepare. Ashford placed his hands behind his back. We're creating a new international program, a joint defense and research council. For the first time, every nation agreed immediately. Sarah blinked. Everyone, even the ones who never cooperate. Ashford smiled faintly. Even them, the test changed everyone. Elias looked at the sky, but something bothered him, something the voice had said. We will return to teach you how to survive the great darkness when it comes. When not if, the shattered probe. Suddenly a soldier rushed onto the roof, saluting urgently. Sir, we recovered one of the probes. It crashed in the desert during the final pulse. It's damaged but intact. Elias's eyes widened. A probe survived the shutdown? Yes, sir. And it's still emitting faint signals. Mark stepped forward. We need to see it. Ashford nodded. Follow me. Inside the secure hangar, the probe rested on a metal table inside a heavily shielded hangar. Sparks flickered from its cracked surface, and the golden glow pulsed weaker now, like a dying heartbeat. Sarah whispered, it looks alive. Elias nodded. In a way it is. He approached carefully. The probe turned its single eye toward him, even damaged. It still recognized him. Elias felt a strange warmth, not physical, but something deeper, a connection. The probe projected a small hologram, not a message, not a warning, a star map. Sarah gasped. That's Earth's sky. Mark leaned closer. But look, there's something new. A dark region appeared in the center of the map, a void where stars should be, a spreading blackness, growing with every second. Elias whispered, the great darkness. The probe flickered, then projected new symbols. Sarah translated them slowly. Threat vector approaching, cycle progression 73%, estimated arrival unknown. Mark swallowed hard. It's already moving toward us. The probe dimmed further, but before shutting down completely, it generated one final image, something massive, something not entirely physical, something shaped like a wave of shadow swallowing stars. Sarah's body tensed. What is that? Elias whispered. The thing that destroyed their world. The probe went dark. The truth of the great darkness. General Ashford took a step back. So this darkness, it destroys planets. Elias shook his head. No, it erases them. Sarah looked confused. What's the difference? Elias exhaled. Destruction leaves pieces, ruins, debris, but the darkness leaves nothing. No dust, no orbit changes, no signature. Mark added slowly, it's like the universe forgets something existed there. Ashford frowned, but how can something erase a planet from reality? Elias stared at the empty probe shell. That's what the Watchers wanted to teach us. A visitor in the mind. As they turned to leave the hangar, Elias suddenly felt a pulse in his head, not pain, not pressure, a voice, but not the ancient, tired voice from before. This one was newer, unsteady, faint. We remain. Elias froze. Sarah touched his arm. Elias, what's wrong? He didn't answer. The voice continued, you passed the first test, but the true trial is ahead. Elias whispered to the air, what are you, another Watcher? A fragment, one of many. We are what survived our world's fall. Elias swallowed. Why are you speaking to me? The voice softened. Because you chose calm when others chose fear. You opened your mind. You reached for unity. Elias closed his eyes. But why me? I'm just a scientist. Exactly. The darkness consumes warriors first. But thinkers endure longer. Elias's chest tightened. Sarah held him steady. Elias, talk to us. What's happening? Elias exhaled shakily. They're not gone. They're still here inside the network, inside the probes, inside the minds they touched. Mark's eyes widened. You mean the Watchers left something behind? Elias nodded slowly. They left a teacher. What humanity earned hours later, the Global Council gathered again, this time not to panic, but to plan. Elias stood before the assembly. We passed their test. We showed unity, peace, and choice in the face of fear, and because of that, the Watchers left us a message and a warning. He showed the hologram of the spreading darkness. Gasps filled the room. Elias continued, the darkness destroys civilizations that cannot survive themselves. It feeds on chaos, fear, division, but it can be slowed, avoided, even resisted if we prepare as they did not. A council member asked, what do we do now? Elias pointed at the image. We learn, we study, we grow, we unite. Sarah added, they didn't spare us because we're perfect. They spared us because we can still change. Mark nodded, and because humanity is stubborn enough to fight even against the impossible. The room filled with energy, not fear this time, but purpose. General Ashford stepped forward. Then prepare protocols, share all technology, unite all nations. We start training today. For the first time, humanity didn't argue, they agreed. The final message. As night fell, Elias stood outside Central Command again, staring at the stars. A soft breeze brushed against his face. He wondered where the Watchers had gone, whether they were watching still, whether they were fading into the void. The faint voice spoke one last time, we will return when you are ready to face the darkness. Until then, grow. Elias whispered, we won't disappoint you. The voice faded. A shooting star streaked across the sky, or perhaps something else, leaving Earth behind with hope and warning in equal measure. Epilogue. One world. In the months that followed, borders softened, conflicts paused. Scientists from every nation worked side by side. Children learned new stories about unity and courage. The world slowly changed, not perfectly, not instantly, but honestly. And every night people looked up at the moon, not with fear, but with determination. Because Earth had learned one great truth, humanity had been spared not because they were strong, but because they could become stronger. The Watchers had given them a chance, a single chance, and humanity would spend every moment preparing for the day when the great darkness finally arrived. The day they would stand together, not as nations, not as rivals, but as one world, ready.